The Patrick Riggins Show. Call in now, 865-243-TALK. That's 243-8255. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
Welcome to the Patrick Riggins Show. Getting you going this Sunday afternoon with a little Slash on guitar and Miles Kennedy on the vocals. Slash being from Guns N' Roses and Miles Kennedy being from Alter Bridge, for those of you who might be curious about those types of things. Thank you for tuning in again this week. You're listening to the fastest growing radio show of its kind, the Patrick Riggins Show. We are currently being broadcast exclusively from what is known as our flagship station here in Knoxville, Tennessee, 100.3 WNOX. We are pumping out 100,000 watts of power, allowing us to carry the banner of freedom and liberty to parts of 5 of these great southeastern United States and 2 time zones. If you would rather, you can also listen to this radio show over the internet. Even though we're running 100 kilowatts of power, we are limited by how far our radio broadcast can be heard. But over the internet, we are limited only by your bandwidth and, of course, the censorship of whatever government under which you might be living. Here in America, we don't have any significant internet censorship yet. If you'd like the address for our web broadcast, it is www.wnoxfm.com. That is the website for the radio station here in Knoxville. If you didn't guess that already, there you can listen and watch this radio show via our in-studio webcam. That address again is wnoxfm.com. Yeah, listen to the Slash show. You like that, Tori?
Yeah, I like it. I was listening to it.
This is Tori here, the Sunday show producer here.
I'm the Sunday guy.
The Sunday guy. He's present on every radio show, just about. Yeah, every radio show.
From 11 till 5.
Yeah, just you're a man of many talents.
I'm a man of many shows.
Man of many shows. You need to specialize. Of course, that limits your paycheck then.
Oh, let's not even talk about my paycheck.
You do this for free, right?
I love radio. Let's put it that way. Really, really love radio.
Really like radio.
Really.
I like it so much, I'd almost do it for free.
Yeah.
Almost. All right. Thank you for tuning in to the show again this week. I am grateful for every one of my listeners out there who take the time out of your busy weekend to listen to this show. Our audience numbers are, well, they're just skyrocketing, and it is all due to you. I can sit here and talk until I'm blue in the face, but without an audience, well, I'd be wasting my time and my sponsors' money. But this audience has been growing by leaps and bounds, almost purely through word of mouth, and I sincerely want to thank everyone out there for that. Working together, I really think we can start making the changes we need to make in order to get this country back on the right footing, back on the right road towards freedom and liberty. And it's going to be a tough fight, but nothing worth doing is ever easy. And yes, I know we shouldn't have to fight this battle to try and win this war, because if we had a government that respected the Constitution, we wouldn't have gotten to this point right now that we are at. But as they say, it is what it is. What's the other one? If what?
If it ain't broken, don't fix it.
But, well, yeah, that too. But what the
swear it.
Yeah, I want to. If ifs and ands, or ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a great Christmas. That's it.
That quacks like a duck.
Yeah, if it quacks like a duck, it's tyrannical. Oh, unfortunately, though, the people who have gone before us have dropped the ball almost from the very beginning of this country. As officially founded, we had people wanting to tell others what to do and wanting to spend tax money in ways that weren't allowed. We had people who fought against all this, but as you can see, it has been a steady creeping of government into the lives of everyone in this country, and even people all around the world. In other countries, we have no place being in. Our government has stuck its collective nose into other people's business. So You see, it hasn't happened overnight. So it won't be something we fix overnight. As I said on one of my shows a few weeks ago, a lot of us, and I might go so far as to say all of us, will be dead and gone before our country gets back to where it should be. That is, without a major occurrence, since like a dollar collapse or something like that, something along those lines. But even then, it'll be a fight to keep the government from making a grab at the last remaining freedoms we have as citizens of this country. One of the problems in this country is we no longer have true representatives in Washington. We have people who fancy themselves rulers over us. Instead of being one of us, an equal sent to Congress or the presidency to do our will, they look at themselves as rulers. Now, you may say, Patrick, that's a pretty strong statement to make. Yes, it is. But when you have people who vote on laws and then exempt themselves from them, that is acting like a ruler. For instance, the whole gun debate that is swirling around in this country, which is largely a media and government hype story, the people in Washington are wanting to vote on whether or not I can own a certain type of firearm. Some of the legislation even seeks to do away with them altogether. But nowhere in this legislation do I see the government being told to do away with their guns as well. If it's such a wonderful idea, why doesn't it apply to all of us? Because our so-called representatives who see themselves as rulers don't think our laws apply to them. Now, this country was founded on the equal application of law. But as we've seen over and over, the government who see themselves, these people see themselves as our rulers, not our representatives. The law doesn't apply to them because they're above it. We've allowed this to happen, and frankly, it's well past time we start doing something about turning this ship around. Anyway, we're up on the first break here in the Patrick Riggins Show. We'll be back after these couple of messages with more intelligent analysis and fun. And Tori will be here too, a whole show, so yay. All right, this is Patrick Riggins. We'll be back after a couple of messages.
Fighting for freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. The Patrick Riggins Show. Call in now at 865-243-8255. That's 243-TALK. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
Yes, hold your head up. Proud to be an American. Proud to be someone fighting for freedom and liberty instead of rolling over and just taking what comes along. Never a good thing to be doing. This is the Patrick Riggins Show, and we are back. And what I want to talk about this segment is, well, I guess we'll kind of pursue this gun thing a little bit here and mix in a little bit of this fiscal cliff garbage. You know, have you ever stopped to think about what would happen if government should collapse? If you're in this audience and one of our regular listeners, then life for you will probably improve. But life for people dependent on government will be considerably worse off. And government won't be happy because all of a sudden it's not around as much anymore. Its power is greatly diminished. Now, Congress is talking about trying to avert the fiscal cliff. They're talking about the sacrifices that have to be made, the raised taxes we'll have to pay. Am I mistaken about something? Did I cause this fiscal cliff? No, I did not. Then why am I having to pitch in to fix it? When people want to reduce their taxes, they're called greedy. But when the government is talking about, they take about 50% of your money across all taxes. If you added up every tax you're paying at all the little places, and they spend more than they make, that isn't greedy and irresponsible to boot? Congress created this whole problem. They are the whole reason we have economic problems. I don't spend more than I make, so why should I cover for Congress when they spend more money than they take in? The very people telling us they have the solution, they're the ones that created this mess. Look at the debt. How are we going to pay off all of that? There's no way. Not even if you taxed everyone in America at 100%, you aren't going to get the debt paid off. Yet we sit out here and allow this sort of thing to continue. and we wonder aloud why it does when we encourage it by not holding our representatives' feet to the fire. We're not bugging them with emails and calls until they do the right thing. That is the way to start making the changes this country so desperately needs. Part of the problem, and I've mentioned this before, is the very overbearing and absolutely intrusive government we now have. It wants to do everything for everyone. And the problem with that is people don't want to grow up then. People who are dependent on government for providing for them never have to become adults. And thus, they act like children. They're never given the chance to learn, to mature, to become self-dependent. Unfortunately, a lot of Americans don't want to be bothered with having to do that. Just like they don't want to be burdened with paying the real price on something. I was reading a story in the newspaper yesterday about how the milk price is going to go up unless Congress renews the legislation which basically subsidizes milk. Now, government shouldn't be doing that, no more than they should be subsidizing anything. You see, we don't want to be burdened with paying the real cost of health care. A lot of us don't want to be burdened with providing our own housing, our own food, or even our own cell phone. So what happened at... Yeah. So what will be happening at that point when government runs out of money, and more accurately, the money used to finance the government's debt becomes worthless? When we do have a financial crisis, and believe me, we're going to have one, we aren't at a physical cliff. We went over that a while back. All we're doing now is fighting over parachutes and who we're going to blame. At that point, people will have stopped listening to government. And with the collapse comes the collapse of enforcement mechanisms government has at its disposal. Now, one reason is because the government enforcers now don't have time to worry about working for the government. They'll be trying to provide for themselves and their families. Now, there'll be a core force of government protectors still employed, but the money they're being paid is worthless, and the population will not be as accepting of these intrusions into private and personal matters. That is why it's imperative for the government to disarm as much as possible the population. The reason we have guns is not necessarily to kill others. It is to protect us from others who might decide they want to kill us. Taking up all the guns is not the answer. If one person has a gun, and as long as we have government, we'll have that person. Or more accurately, we'll have those people who have weapons. And thus, we'll need to protect ourselves against them. Besides, guns don't kill people, as you may have remembered from this movie.
Your rifle is only a tool. It is a hard heart that kills.
Exactly. Heck, even the actor and one-time rap music star Ice-T realizes that guns play an important role in American life, as I played on this very show a little while back. If you're new to this show, and a lot of people are, and you haven't heard his interview on Britain's Channel 4, he was promoting a documentary film called Something from Nothing, The Art of Rap, which chronicles rap music's beginning. Now, during the interview, this was a little while back, the news of the shooting in Colorado came over the wires, and the interviewer asked him about gun control and what his thoughts are on owning guns. Now, here was his reply.
Well, I'd give up my gun when everybody else does.
Of course, this surprised the interviewer, being in Britain, and then Mr. Ice-T followed up with this.
If there were guns here, would you want to be the only person without one?
Yes. So what Ice-T was referring to was the fact that gun regulations are pretty stiff in Britain for law-abiding people. But this is the important clip. This is the part of the interview where Ice-T breaks from other Hollywood, well, he's not an idiot, but from the other Hollywood idiots.
You know, the right to bear arms is because that's the last form of defense against tyranny, not to hunt. It's to protect yourself from the police.
The right to bear arms is the last form of defense against tyranny. Well, couldn't have said that any better myself. Of course, this isn't what the interviewer wanted to hear, so he asked Ice-T if having guns in America makes it easier for people to kill one another, and here was his reply to that.
Nah, not really. You know what I'm saying? If somebody wants to kill people, they don't need a gun to do it. You can strap explosives on your body. They do that all the time.
It's amazing this guy is in Hollywood. Although I don't know how many friends he has left after doing that interview. Probably not a whole lot. People didn't tend to be pretty shallow and superficial out there in La La Land. But the point is, the Second Amendment has almost absolutely nothing to do with hunting. It has everything to do with protecting yourself against a tyrannical government, a government that is overstepping its bounds. You ask why I need a semi-automatic rifle with a 30-round or even bigger magazine. That's what that's called, magazines, not clips. Whenever you hear someone refer to a magazine as a clip, just go ahead and disregard everything else they're saying. But back to the question, why do I need this type of rifle? Because the government is dang sure going to have more firepower than I do, and I need every advantage I can get, so should the situation come to that. Government wars and exterminations in the 20th century, the last century, reached 262 million people killed by their own governments, and 44 million people killed in wars brought on by those governments. The government doesn't want an armed population, not one armed as well as it is here, because it wants to be able to roll over anyone standing against it should the need arise. The government is about preserving itself. You see, if it comes down to you or the government's going to choose itself, just like you would. You would choose yourself and self-preservation over that of the government. I mean, just look how it treats you. You're supposed to be over government. You're supposed to be the one who created government. Now you may ask, why would government want to bother me? Why would they deem it necessary to take enforcement action against me? Oh, I don't know. Let's say the government decides something you are doing is illegal. Let's say you're smoking pot in a state where it is legal, but the government of that state decides to make it illegal. So it's a stroke of a pen. Within seconds, you went from not breaking the law to breaking it. And what changed? Nothing. Other than the fact someone in government now says you cannot do that activity anymore. Let's say it's something you cannot control, like your heritage. Just ask the Japanese here in America during World War II. They weren't doing anything wrong, yet it was deemed necessary to ship them off to internment camps. What if the government decided they were terrorists and now has the power to hold them without trial, without having access to a lawyer? How far is it to step on over and say it would be better and cheaper just to go ahead and deprive them of their lives? Look, the government violates your rights constantly, every day, and almost dares you to challenge it. The reason is because few people have the will or money to put together a huge legal challenge to the government. When you sue the government, you have to pay your legal bills and the government's, or part of them, because the government's funded with your tax dollars. We're up on the end of the first half hour here on the Patrick Riggins Show. One of the fastest shows you'll ever hear. Just time flies by here. I think it's because we have so much intelligence and logic here, and reason. So,
hey, speak for yourself, buddy.
Yeah.
No, wait a minute. No.
Yeah, hold on. Oh, yeah. All right, this is Patrick Riggins with the Patrick Riggins Show. We'll be back after these couple of messages.
Fighting for freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. The Patrick Riggins Show. Call in now at 865-243-8255. That's 243-TALK. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
This is Patrick Riggins, the sunshine of your life.
And the griping does not stop between the segments.
Yeah, it goes on during commercials.
We sit here and gripe so much even during the commercials.
Yes. That we could do a show with if we just recorded what was going on during the commercials.
We'd have
some
to
of
bleep.
the stuff.
We'd have to bleep some of it.
Yeah,
yes.
some of the stuff you'd have to edit. A little redacting there. But it would be good. You would find out a lot about Tori. And, that ballerina costume he keeps in the closet. Yeah. I don't know.
I just look like a hippie on the outside. Not on the inside.
Oh, gosh. We could just go way down that road and end up having the signal turned off.
Focus.
Focus. The show.
Yes.
The show's the important
What
thing.
segment we on here?
We're on third segment.
All right, let's go.
All right, here we go. All right. What do we have here? Oh, this segment. Okay, I was reading a story on Breitbart.com, which I know a lot of you are instantly going, oh, I can't believe he reads that. Some of you are probably saying, yeah, you should be reading that. Much like the libertarian philosophy, it kind of makes people mad on either side sometimes. But anyway, this story was by Matthew Doyle, and it was noting, and it came out probably a week ago or so, but it noted their rumblings within the House Republicans. They're going to try and oust Boehner, the House Speaker Boehner, when Congress reconvenes in January. Now, I've, of course, talked about Boehner on this show, and a lot of you know I'm not a big fan. And if you want to hear some of that ranting and raving, go to our YouTube website at youtube.com/Patrick Riggins Show. But the article states that dissatisfaction with Boehner is growing in the House Republican Conference. The article says those members and staffers requested anonymity from Breitbart News at this time to prevent retaliation from Boehner, similar to what happened to those 4 Tea Party members who were purged from their powerful committee assignments a few weeks ago, which, if you're a regular listener to the show, you heard me note that back when that first happened. And again, if you want to listen to any of that while I'm thinking about it, it's youtube.com/Patrick Riggins Show, and there you can listen to all the past shows as well as each individual segment of the show. They go through and cut out the segments too, so if you don't want to hear the whole show, you can just go right to the segment you want to listen to. But anyway, in case you're wondering, with all this going on, if there's any chance Nancy Pelosi could get back in as Speaker, the article notes that it's pretty doubtful. It is still not possible for Pelosi to become Speaker because even with 100% of Democrats united behind her and a split GOP vote, she still can't get in. Now, the reason is because to become Speaker, you have to have an absolute majority of all votes cast for an individual. So what that means is if all 201 Democrats voted for Pelosi, Boehner gets 1 vote, and the remaining 233 Republicans each vote for a different individual. Each of them voted for 233 different people. Pelosi still does not win. She would need 218 votes to reach the majority of the 435 that's in Congress, cast for an individual. Since Republicans have a 33-vote advantage in the House, the only way Nancy Pelosi wins is if 17 Boehner opponents would have to affirmatively vote for Nancy Pelosi or abstain rather than vote for an alternate candidate. Of course, both of those are avoided because they'll vote for somebody other than Pelosi. So as long as they do that, then she can't get in. The same argument also applies if fewer than 435 members show up to vote. The magic number would be less than 218, but Pelosi still can't get in there as long as there's more Republicans in the room than Democrats, and they don't abstain or vote for her. So, anyway, the Republicans may be getting a little backbone and starting to stand up to the leadership, which clearly have them on the wrong road. I can't help but think this is partially coming because of the unfair treatment of the more conservative/libertarian wing of the party. Boehner was clearly behind that. It's about time the party turns on him and puts him out. He's nothing but an embarrassment to the Republicans, and hopefully the Tea Party people can rally around someone with firmer principles. Part of Boehner's problem is that he seems intent on trying to work something out with the president as far as this fiscal cliff is concerned. And the president doesn't care if we go over this cliff, which, as I noted in my last segment, we already have. It's mainly because I think most people in Washington, they all realize this as well, that we're over the cliff. What I mean by that is what I noted. We're too far in debt to get back. Not unless we do some real serious cutting of government spending, which you and I both know is not going to happen. We have spent so much money and put ourselves so far in debt. And I know this before. If you took everyone's money in the United States, we still couldn't get out of this mess. the only thing we can do is start getting ourselves ready for what is coming and putting people who will act courageously and in line with the Constitution. That's the real solution to this coming problem. No, I'm not being a conspiracy nut or an end-of-times person. I'm merely stating the truth. That's what you come to expect on this show. It's simple math. There's no calculus, no advanced trig. It's just addition and subtraction. If you're spending more money than you make, then it's only a matter of time until you're broke. Unfortunately, our government employees, otherwise known as our representatives, are not wanting to confront the truth and prefer to kick the can down the road and let someone else take the heat for solving the problem. The time, though, is rapidly approaching when we won't be able to do that. The can will be too big to kick down the road. In fact, we'll be in danger of it having, roll back over us. What happens during that time will depend largely on the quality of people we have elected to Congress. And that's why I prod you each week to start putting together a campaign yourself or help someone else get theirs going and help get those good people elected. Otherwise, the government will use the coming fiscal crisis, just like they're doing with this shooting up there in Newtown. They're going to use that to take away even more of your freedoms and liberties. If you don't believe me, you don't think that could happen, what do you think the founders of this country would say about all the intrusions happening now? To give you a hint, Homeland Security would probably label them all terrorists and imprison them. Here are some quotes from Thomas Jefferson. The strongest reason for the people to retain the right to keep and bear arms is, as a last resort, to protect themselves against tyranny and government. He also said, laws that forbid the carrying of arms disarm only those who are neither inclined nor determined to commit crimes. Such laws make things worse for the assaulted and better for the assailants. They serve rather to encourage than to prevent homicides, for an unarmed man may be attacked with greater confidence than an armed man. He also said, what country can preserve its liberties if its rulers are not warned from time to time that this people preserve the spirit of resistance? Let them take arms. The remedy is to set them right as to the facts, pardon and pacify them. What signify a few lives lost in a century or two? The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. It is its natural manure. Are these the words of a terrorist? The government would certainly label them as such. If Thomas Jefferson were alive today, he certainly would be on a TSA watch list and would probably be picked out of line at the airport for those, quote, random searches, unquote, they usually reserve for the 80-year-olds and the young women. All of this because he spoke of freedom. If you read the FBI advisories, they would probably label this radio show incendiary. All because I speak of wanting back this country's freedoms that we used to have. Not new freedoms, not new rights, not new liberties, only the ones that have been confiscated from the citizens of this country. Rights and freedoms we had when this country began. Now, they'll say, if I want those back, I must be a nut or a terrorist or someone wanting to start a rebellion. Anyway, we're up on the last break here on the Patrick Riggins Show. We'll be back with the last segment. We'll probably continue along this little line and talk a little bit about, well, we'll wrap up kind of this gun control stuff and hopefully put it to bed before the new year. So we'll be back in a little bit here on the Patrick Riggins Show. Be sure and listen to these messages. These are the people who help keep this show on the air.
People sleeping in their shoes, but there's a warning sign on the road.
Fighting for freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. The Patrick Riggins Show. Call in now at 865-243-8255. That's 243-TALK. And now your host, Patrick Riggins.
This is the Patrick Riggins Show. If you're racking your brain on that song, it's the Screaming Trees.
That was a tree screaming.
As he ran the chainsaw through.
I got a question.
All right.
If a tree was to scream in the forest and no one was around to hear it, Would it be
make
screaming?
a noise?
Yes, would it make a noise screaming?
It would still be screaming, but would it make a noise, though? It'd be doing the very act of screaming. You should pose that to him. You're a musician. You run with these people. You gotta run into one of those guys from that band sometime. I think they were popular in the 92, 93, 94, something like that.
Yeah. I'll go back in 92 and ask them.
If you can do that, well, we're not going to be doing this radio show. We're going to be living probably in an island somewhere with a lot of money. Yeah. I will be investing with Microsoft at the early days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Buy into Facebook? Yes.
Yes, I'll have a little of that too. Sell out after the IPO. All right. Here in the last segment of the show, and kind of a follow-up to my comments over the past couple of weeks about this whole shooting in Connecticut. It seems as if the national media are finally catching on to what I've been saying from day one. Why is it we're all concerned about this shooting in Newtown and have completely disregarded the daily killing of children and adults all around the world? Now, again, if you want to hear any of those shows, go to youtube.com/Patrick Riggin Show. What brings this subject back up is an article that ran on Fox News a few days ago entitled, or foxnews.com. It was entitled, "Far Away from Newtown, Kids Face Death Daily, Say Child Advocates." Wow, really? I would have never have guessed that watching the news coverage. In fact, I would almost assume this has never happened before. Children being killed. As I stated on my last show, the only reason the media, the president, and the liberals in Congress say anything about it is because they want to use these poor children's death as a wagon to which they can hitch their fanatical hatred of an armed population. It doesn't have anything to do with these children and their families. All the psychotic gun control nuts care about is the fact that it happened. And they want to be sure and rush and capitalize on it before all the newness wears off. Now, the article starts out, in the aftermath of the mass murder of 20 children at Connecticut's Sandy Hook Elementary School, child advocates are trying to raise awareness of the alarming rate that kids in America continue to be victims of violence and questioning why it goes largely unreported and unrecognized by the public. That's because, as I said, if it doesn't help push a political agenda, then the so-called caring liberals don't care one bit for another human being's life. Now, the article continues, there's so little attention paid to this violence, and the first thing to know is those numbers are probably seriously undercounted. This was Terry Covington, the director of the National Center for Child Death Review. I didn't know we had that, but they went on to say, it's been well documented that those numbers are underreported, perhaps as high as 50%. Child abuse cases often don't show up on death certificates because a lot show up as injuries or accidents. Now, in 2011, this is last year, 639 children ages 1 to 14 were victims of homicide. That's an average of 12.2 children per week nationwide. I don't know how you kill 0.2 of a child, but I guess that'd be really 1/5 of a child, according to preliminary data from Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. For victims aged 1 through 4, homicide was the third leading cause of death. For children ages 5 to 14, homicide was the 5th most common cause of death. Now, where are all the mourners for these children? Why isn't the president giving press conferences and pretending to wipe tears from his eyes during his statements? Why aren't we having all kinds of people trying to get their 15 minutes of fame on the backs of other dead humans? Oh, that's right. I can't get gun control passed with only 639 children being killed 1 or 2 at a time over a year, so they don't count. I can't use them and their tragedy for their deaths to promote my political agenda. Only when we get a bunch of children killed all at once can I do that. So I better get to work and make sure this horrible atrocity counts for all I can. Because who knows when we'll get lucky again and have some crazy with a gun kill another bunch of people. One way we can help try and encourage is to hype it up. Mention the shooter's name a lot for weeks at a time. Show the other crazy people who have illusions of grandeur that we'll reward them as well. We'll make sure their names are repeated over and over and over on every media outlet nationwide. Heck, even worldwide if we can swing that too. So if you're looking for attention in the worst way, be sure and shoot up someplace. That'll help us spread this message of fear about guns. If you help us with that, then we'll make sure and hold up our end of the bargain by announcing your name over and over and over, making you infamous and a household name before we get through it all. That's the deal. You help us, the media will help them. If that doesn't drive some media people crazy. We're up on the end of the Patrick Riggins Show. If you want more information about our show, you can go to facebook.com/Patrick Riggins Show. That's all together, facebook.com/Patrick Riggins Show. And Riggins is spelled Riggins. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can go to the little @ Patrick Riggins. And you can also go, I've mentioned this a couple of times during the show, our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Patrick Riggins Show, all pushed together there. You can reach us on email at the same thing, patrickriggins@gmail.com, or just drop a letter in the mail or note or whatever to WOX here on the Kingston Pike in Knoxville. Thank you again for listening to the show this week. Join me next Sunday afternoon, where once again we'll talk about freedom, liberty, and the restoration of the Constitution. This is Patrick Riggins, and we'll see you next Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. Have a great week, and Happy New Year to everyone.
Join us again next week for a solid dose of truth on the Patrick Riggins Show, every Sunday from 2 to 3 p.m. Be there.